This is Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for January 12th. Underground activist group Anonymous posted a video to several websites this past Thursday in response to the terror attacks in Paris. Calling it #OpCharlieHebdo, Anonymous published a statement as well, which reads, in part, that the freedom of speech suffered an inhuman assault, and warning terror groups to expect a massive frontal reaction from Anonymous. In the video, a masked figure says, quote, "The Anonymous of all the planet have decided to declare war on you terrorists. We will track you down to the last one and kill you." The threats followed several violent attacks in France during the past week and cyber attacks on the websites of several French municipalities. The website pages were replaced with a black ISIS flag and a message in Arabic which read, "The Islamic State stay inshallah, free Palestine, death to France, death to Charlie." Terror group Boko Haram began attacks in Nigeria last weekend, and reports indicate up to 2,000 people have been murdered. Amnesty International calls the massacre the deadliest in Boko Haram's history, dating back to 2009. The group wants to impose Sharia law on Nigeria and has launched several attacks, including a mass kidnapping of 200 girls. The Nigerian military has put together a counteroffensive and seeks to reclaim the village of Baga and the surrounding area. Some 30,000 people have been displaced by the violence, with some fleeing across the border into Chad and Cameroon. Cameroon has responded to Boko Haram, killing dozens of militants in the past month and prompting a threat against the nation in a video posted by the terror group. Cameroon's President Biya has called for international response to Boko Haram's escalation of violence. The offices of the Hamburger Morgenpost in Germany were attacked with rocks and burning objects in a case of arson in response to the publication printing 3 of the Charlie Hebdo cartoons on its front page this weekend. The damage was confined to 2 rooms on the lower floor of the office, and the fire was quickly put out. No one was injured, and local police have detained 2 people. They have made no further comments on the investigation. The Marine Corps is attempting to meet orders to integrate women into combat roles by January 2016, or provide research-based reasons why they can't. So far, no woman has been able to meet the physical standards required to pass the infantry officer course. 29 attempts have been made by female officers to pass the course since women were allowed to volunteer, but none of those women have made it to graduation. This is leading to louder calls for different standards for male and female officers from those outside the Marine Corps. This has been Amy Curtis with your Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for January 12th.
DLR.
This show is produced by IJReview.com.
This show is copyright by VLR Media. All opinions of panelists and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media, the host, or anyone else.
Let's be clear. Now let's be clear. There are no winners here. Now let's be clear. Now let's be clear. Now let's be clear. There are no winners here.
2 minds are better than one. Time for the Right Mics with Mike Miller and Michael Hausum.
Welcome to the show. You are listening to The Right Mics with Mike Miller and Michael Hausum. Good Monday afternoon to you. The number, if you'd like to call in this hour, is 412-567-6879. We have rock star, writer, and commentator Caleb Howe on the second hour. For the first hour, there's lots of stuff for Mike and I to talk about. Miller, how are you?
I'm good, dude. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you indeed. So let's get right to it, man. Paris.
Yeah, you know, anybody who didn't pay attention to what went on, and I don't mean, you know, down multiple layers, but just the fact, estimate 3.7 million people marching. They said it was almost impossible to tell if there were more than that. Largest rally in Paris history. I don't know how many hundreds of years old Paris is, but you go back to, obviously. But anyway, but we got to talk about it on multiple levels. And I think first, the fact that it happened. There is a certain irony. I think I mentioned this just a tad Friday, but I mean, there's a certain irony to these governments. Well, that's not fair. The country and their people, because governments are a product of the people, not the other way around. By the way, liberals. But this decades long, as I've called it, cultural experiment. That's failed miserably. This multiculturalism, and we've talked about it multiple times. It's in effect become the Islamization of Europe, but now, I mean, it happens in their own country, right? We have 17 people killed, and this is their 9/11. And listen, horrible tragedy, horrible. But it's almost as if you reap what you sow, like I said Friday. So again, I found it. I just find it somewhat ironic in terms of this was going to be a great experiment that has failed miserably, and now they maybe get it. Do you think they get it now?
Well, you know what? I think the French get it. But France, the government of France, I don't think they do. I don't think we're going to see Francois Hollande. Well, I don't know. It was funny. I was listening to on Friday, Dennis Miller was talking about this, and he was making a distinction between the French people, of which, 3-some million show up about this. But the multicultural, everybody's equal, don't offend narrative is so ingrained that maybe this is a turning point. Maybe this is maybe these, what was it, 17 people have died so far, Mike? Is that right?
Right.
Maybe that's France's ante into the big game. I mean, our ante is thousands, obviously, and just based upon what even Eric Holder said over the weekend, we actually haven't anteed sufficiently to be in the game. Maybe this is sufficient for the French.
I don't know. I mean, and not to disagree with Brother Dennis, because I haven't seen or listened to his entire comments, but I believe it's more what I said. I mean, you've got, and it can be said. Because these countries are most like us in Europe, as opposed to Finland and Scandinavian countries and so forth. You have France, you have Germany, and you have Great Britain. You see some similarity happening, excuse me, in Germany right now.
Right.
Sans a major attack, but you have Angela Merkel coming out and warning the German citizenry against conducting anti-Muslim rallies. We see, one would hope that that the French people, and I would guess by virtue of showing up in the millions for this rally, would feel somewhat the same. And then you have Great Britain. I have friends in Great Britain who every time, this is back when I had Rat Nation, my personal blog, running on all, as I used to say, 12 cylinders, because I paid attention to it, because that's the only writing, I did. I didn't have a show. I would rail against Great Britain, for its, you and I have talked about Londonistan and so forth. And one of this guy and a gal, two different people, assure me that the majority of the supposedly the British people, disagree with their government. I don't know that we've seen protests in terms of neighborhoods there being, not only turned into basically Sharia-controlled neighborhoods, but Muslims marching in the street, vicious signs. But this is where, again, I didn't hear Dennis's entire comments. But as I said, the government is you get what you pay for. I don't mean the way Democrats win elections here. I'm just kidding, but you do.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you do. I mean, the government is a product, unless you live in a Soviet Union or China. The government is a product of your vote at the ballot box, and this has been allowed to continue in Europe for decades. So I hope. I hope France gets it. I hope it doesn't take another attack or two just to make sure, as I hope it doesn't take multiple attacks in, Germany or Great Britain as well. I just think it's going to happen. So, yeah, one would hope they get it.
Well, it's the question to me is, do they get it, or do they really emphasize doubling down on offensive, hateful speech so as not to cause this kind of reaction from activists?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, sure. That's a very good point. As what did we talk about? Josh Earnest last week. We have to redouble our efforts. That whole thing. So
right.
That's a good point. You know what? We'll see. Because I might, real quickly, I might as well have thrown in the United States as well. Because while our government used to get it, our government doesn't get it anymore, as well as a majority of usins do, the people.
Oh, right. And that's I did a video and an article about Eric Holder over the weekend. And I'll have to check and see if it's up yet. It wasn't before we went on live. Where he was asked 2 different times on Sunday shows if we're at war with radical Islam. And he's like, no. There are those that, have a corrupted version of it. I mean, you could just imagine how he responded to that question. And they're not getting it, man. They are not getting it. We're mincing around with the words that we want to use to call them, hopefully thinking that our being nice will have a reduction in their interest in severing our heads from our bodies, while they're actually going around severing heads from bodies and killing people for offending the prophet.
Exactly. So in your video, and I want to back up here just a second, but, what's his face? Self-declared... Well, I don't remember who it was, but on MSNBC, I believe, asking Holder if, this was a war against radical Muslim extremism, and he corrected it and said, no, this is a war against terror. Which that's a step for the Obama administration, because they refused to call it a war against terror for years.
Right. Yeah, I mean that would be an interesting move, a bold, fresh move of the administration to go back to using the words "war on terror." I mean
there's a clip online as we speak of Holder exactly saying that. No, the question again, they're saying in France, Hollande said, we're in a war against radical Islam. And he was asked by whomever the interviewer was if he agrees, and he said he nuanced words, but he said, and this is verbatim, no, we're in a war on terror. He used those words. I find that interesting. I wonder if Josh Earnest will disavow those.
Yeah, I mean, have him walk it back.
Yeah, so they don't want, the regime still doesn't want to be associated with saying or being perceived to say anything negative as it relates to Islam, doesn't want to be seen doing such, which leads us to the second part of Paris I wanted to talk about. There were 44 world leaders there, including about 6 people apart in this, there were various lines of these leaders walking arm in arm. About 3 guys to the right of Hollande, we had Mahmoud Abbas, of all people, right? President of the Palestinian Authority. And about 3 folks to the left of Hollande, we had Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, yet Barack Obama was nowhere to be seen.
Is he still in Hawaii?
No, and I'm going to tell you in a second where he was and what he was doing. But listen, we know, do we not know why he was